And I welcome everyone. Uh, just my brief introduction. I finished my master's in clinical experimental medicine from University College London. Post that, I was working with Pfizer, and after that, I moved to Roche. And now, currently, I am as an advisor to CellStrat with respect to their very innovative and exciting pipeline of artificial intelligence in healthcare. So I've had a privilege of having the first session with them, which was on 8th of November, wherein we discussed the great opportunities that artificial intelligence presents in healthcare, but specifically my topic of discussion was the great opportunities that artificial intelligence presents in public health. As that's an area which is very close to my heart, and as well as I'm quite passionate about that area in health. So today's session would definitely be in trying to understand that if we really want to have a complete or a full-blown outcomes in AI as an opportunity that it presents, we must also, as a part of the healthcare system or an ecosystem, we all who are as an audience as well should know what are those challenges that we have to address as an ecosystem, not from an AI or a technology perspective, but from an ecosystem perspective. What would be those challenges which would help AI to become much more successful in its adoption in incoming years? On that very note, I would start. So, like I said, I think my highlight would be to discuss on that a great promise that AI brings in public health, but still the challenges remain. And a quick recap of what we discussed in our last session was that because of COVID, definitely, I think there is an environment where we are seeing an unprecedented, I would say, the economic needs and the humanitarian needs that are driving the healthcare systems across the globe to develop and adopt the new digital technologies at quite an agile scale and speed. And also from that perspective, we also discussed that how there have been such a splurge of innovation happening across the globe with respect to the online databases, data sets, identifying cases, clusters of infections, and how rapidly we are tracing contacts through our contact tracer apps, which were in Taiwan. We discussed, and there have been a lot of development in machine learning, applying machine learning and understanding how do we monitor the travel patterns during the lockdown and enable a stronger communication in public health messaging at a scale, which was only possible because of, I would say, AI. So a lot of credit uh, should be given to this wonderful technology, which is artificial intelligence. And barriers, of course, to the widespread use of artificial intelligence still remains. It's a pertinent challenge, which we will try and understand from this particular session. And like I said, it's not a pertinent challenge with the technology. I always think and believe, in my personal opinion, that there is a challenge with respect to an ecosystem and how do we work together as stakeholders to bring in, to fill in those gaps and get this wonderful technology to its full advantage. So without saying, I think healthcare market, artificial intelligence market is huge. I think there have been reports outside of, the which talks about that the market is going to grow exponentially, and I think $50 billion market by 2027. I think without a surprise, I mean, from 2020 we saw it compounded, with a massive 41.4% because of COVID. Thanks to COVID, I think it grew exponentially in 2020, and somewhere it is going to land up somewhere around 51 billion US dollar by 2027, which is huge, I would say, in terms of adoption of a technology in this particular space. And I think by technology, I've tried and highlighted the machine learning, which is growing exponentially. By application, definitely applying machine learning, applying the artificial intelligence in the drug discovery as also spearheaded. I think we have seen approvals, which we will discuss in our later part of the slides in UK and the other parts, that how it's just kind of adoption is superlatively fast in drug discovery. And also from a perspective of the end users, who are these end users who are adopting artificial intelligence at that scale and on that pace would be definitely pharmaceuticals and biopharmaceutical companies, because they see huge outcomes with respect to the projects that they kind of lead. Um, it was a wonderful example that I tried to put in this particular slide, which was how AI was applied. The application of artificial intelligence was used in the drug discovery in the COVID era. I felt that a due importance and recognition needs to be given to this wonderful technology. I think in November 19, 2020, baricitinib, which is a drug which is used for rheumatoid arthritis and JAK inhibitor, it received an emergency use authorization from an FDA for the treatment of hospitalized patients with COVID-19. And for the audience who are not aware, there's this company called Benevolent, which is of course an AI platform based company, wherein what they did, they applied the machine learning, and I would say they had the algorithms developed on the 4 molecules, which were mostly anti-cancer molecules, and baricitinib was also one of them. And baricitinib and the other anti-cancer molecules like Sutent, and there were a couple of many other, but they shortlisted 4 eventually, wherein the pathways looked to be quite similar to the COVID infectious for the blocking of the same pathway that the COVID virus, I would say, affects. So what they realized eventually was that, if you would see in the case report that got published, which was that with respect to the patient who received baricitinib, patients who received baricitinib, they survived as compared to the other 3 shortlisted molecules that they were studying through the applying the artificial intelligence. And with that data of what artificial intelligence used with respect to the baricitinib, there was of course the clinicians as well, wherein the real world evidence was also collected, uh, and I think using this technology, it was, if I have to really use a word, it was. It was kind of accelerated to an extent that it received such a fast authorization from the governing body, wherein patients were dying, and I think that is definitely one of the significant uses of this application which Benevolent did. And uh, I think coming back to the very pertinent point, that even though we see so much of an opportunity with this wonderful technology, but the fact still remains that patient care is a complex process. It's not a mechanical process, unlike to be that of a drug discovery that we always talk about. See, drug discovery, even though we, as in my previous slide, I mentioned that drug discovery and applying artificial intelligence in drug discovery is definitely at the forefront right now. And I understand why, because drug discovery is still a mechanical process. By mechanical process, I mean it's a process related process wherein you can use technology to scale it up and to expedite what we need to kind of know. But at the heart of it, I still feel that the patient care is very different and a very complex and very seen very differently by machines and humans, and to better use technology, it's much important for us to understand what patient care means and what exactly this healthcare is all about. So I think for a machine, patient care would be a right, if you apply a technology-based solution, it might be a right option, without saying, like we saw with baricitinib case or an example. But when we talk about public health in general, and not as one-on-one physician-doctor relationship, wherein we are talking about billions of people together and the global population together, right option would be very important as compared to the best option. So is the machine learning, artificial technology, or any other technology giving us a right option? That is a big question that we all will try and understand in this session. And however logic, how much of a logic you will put into a machine, uh, there always will be certain variables that we feel require a little bit more of an understanding. So I think on that front, I think we need to understand what are those inherent technology or infrastructure challenges with the AI that we can discuss. I think the inherent technology challenges, which is true for any other technology related challenge. I say that in the telecom sector, which is telecommunications, or any other new sector that we are talking about, which is now coming up. I think the data quality is at the forefront. I think algorithm fairness and biases, which is very specific to artificial intelligence, because of course what you feed into these machines with respect to AI is the algorithms, and if there is a bias there, then of course it is going to affect the performance of that particular tool. So I think poor data quality, insufficient algorithms, and a lack of infrastructure support in technology would result. What it would do in this particular setting with respect to AI would be that the patients would not be matched and their real issues would not be matched in real world, and that would affect the output, which is, if we are using AI to help us get a response or help us choose a certain thing, then it would definitely be hampered there. So inherent infrastructure challenges, the other than the data quality and algorithm fairness, would be the resourcing, the training, hardware, and of course the policies at an environment level, or those policies that are governing at a country level, and the mindset which also goes whether innovation does innovation really complement the experience of an individual. That's a long debate that has been happening now from centuries with the advent of industrial revolution coming in. So that is something that we are well aware of, and also to add here would be that when we talk about public health, uh, we talk about everyone. We don't talk about one-on-one cases wherein a doctor and a patient relationship. It's about, there are a lot many stakeholders who get involved when it comes to public health. So if my AI technology is going to resolve an issue, it is going to resolve an issue for everyone. So this disparity cannot be seen as a public health official. If I'm a public health official, I cannot really see a disparity between poor state versus a rich state, and I cannot only consider the requirements of the state that is having better resources compared to the other. So when I make my choices as a public health official, it has to, the things that has to be taken in account would be that it covers all the biases and the disparity between everyone. And that is also one major difference between why the adoption is little slow at a public health level when it comes to this wonderful technology, is because the decision making takes little time, and the choices that as a public health official one has to make, the window is quite, I would say, narrow there. And the major difference is because if pharmaceutical as a corporate health private industry is adopting it faster as an AI, it's because the decision making is quite faster. So coming back to the case study, that how a poor quality data set kind of affects the artificial intelligence based disease prediction analysis. So there was an example. I was reviewing a platform long back when I was working with pharma industry, and there was the disease prediction application that I could have used with that particular platform, which was with respect to Alzheimer's disease, which is a chronic neurodegenerative disease that starts and gradually worsens over the time, and 60 to 70% of the cause is dementia, and the most common early symptom is difficulty in remembering the recent events. So if I, as a human error, if I misspell Alzheimer's with something else, I just put in Alzheimer's here, you would see that there would be so much of a difference in the disease prediction. So when I say that, it means that when I put in a correct one, which is with a letter A, the nervous system diseases are responsible around 98% with respect to having an Alzheimer's disease. And when I had misspelled it, and which was a human error, and nervous system disease as a predictive to having an Alzheimer is just 47%. And we could see the other factors or other variables like environmental disorders also changing dramatically, or diseases of oral cavity, I would say, have which was quite kind of new, I would say, compared to the correct Alzheimer one. So I would say this is a classic example of how a poor quality data set and its incorrect relationship with algorithm has caused a failure in an output. And an AI system, it can detect a pattern or a correlation in a data set, and it can assign a meaningful or a causal relationship that we talk about as a physician, that what exactly is, what you call as what is causing what is a cause and effect. So it would be incorrect or irrelevant. And I always believed that a lot of my friends, or colleagues that I worked with, I think one of their major concerns as physician is that what really changed, with just one little mistake of misspelling one single alphabet, that the prediction was absolutely different. I mean, when we see a huge variation from 98% to 47%, so that is a cause of concern, that why, physicians or the health space or healthcare people are not adopting uh, AI or these technologies that openly. So that is something that, as an environment, we need to understand, and we have to explain to clinicians that why it is important that we put a right data, and the quality of data is important. And I think it also, I believe that there's very poor awareness as well with respect to AI in the physician community. So if we train them, if we make them understand that why does this happen, what happens, it's not just a small minor spelling error, but it is much beyond that, because the technology works primarily on what we feed, which is the data sets. So yes, I think the reliability and validity of the data sets is also one very important challenge, that, or concern, I would say, not a challenge. I think we must have heard, what we put in, we get that out. So it's the garbage in, garbage out model. If your input data is biased, which is, for example, consisting mostly of the young white males, the data sets of young white males, so what you get predictably would be mostly young white males. So it's as straightforward as that. But the question is now, if we are relying on the technology to make that choice for us, what would technology recommend in that particular case? So it will only recommend that what you are putting in, which is a human mind. So the better the training data or the label data, the better the AI will perform. And in some cases, AI needs to be definitely extremely confident, and healthcare data is confident, where the vast amounts of data and data sharing will be necessary for us to understand whether what we are putting is correct or not. And without saying any bias, if it exists in the data set, will affect the output of the machine learning systems. And biases, I can talk about, healthcare space. I think biases can have many sources. It can be biases from a subpopulation level, which population we are chosen. Have we chosen, for example, Asian versus Latin American? So what population type we have chosen, and what kind of a recommendation we are asking the machine to make for us, and the frequency and the instrumentation bias, and etc. And high quality data, of course, one of the biggest concerns that AI developers or the AI firms have, which again is as a part of the ecosystem we need to work together to resolve, would be how do we get an access to the high quality data? Because AI developers cannot produce the data themselves. They need the data coming in from the verified sources, because technically the AI engineers or AI developers, they are not physicians themselves. So they need the support of hospitals, governments, to kind of help them access the primary data sources, which will help them to have a better, reliable, and valid data sets. And there are many other solutions. AI firms have been buying commercially available data sets to train their model. Both pathways are kind of high on capital investments. So early age startups definitely would find it a little difficult, but that's one of the solutions that is definitely there. And the other big concern or a challenge is the how fair are these algorithms that we put in artificial or the basis of artificial intelligence, or I say machine learning? What are these biases? So would these would this, biases be a huge risk for discrimination? I think absolutely yes, because there we have actually a lot of real world examples wherein it has demonstrated that these algorithms that we talk about, they exhibit biases that can result in injustice with regards to ethnic origins, skin colors, genders, or features such as age and disabilities, and as a doctor-patient relationship, one-on-one, honestly does not matter which race that patient is from, what is the skin color, what is the gender, what's the feature, what's it, because it's a single point that a doctor and a patient is talking about. But when we say about the public health, which involves everyone, which is a global population or a country population, I think both phenotype and genotype related information are available. As a public health official, how would I choose, how would I make a right choice for the population? Because I'm a decision maker eventually. Whatever technology I'll choose, I need to ensure that everything that we do is for the righter or a bigger good of the population, not for one single point that or a single patient that I'm seeing. So I think phenotype information and the genotype information, it matters a lot when it comes to public health, unlike to be that of a single doctor-patient relationship. And I think the biases are being seen there as well, which kind of leads to false diagnosis, and then there are treatments which are ineffective because of that. So coming back to that, I think the same thing. Uh, as an AI machinery, we know what we put into that engine, which is an inference engine that in the diagram I've tried to plot in. It relies on the medical knowledge, on the data points that the medical knowledge has, and the patient data that we get from the sources. And apart from that, we put that into the data, we put that into the engine, and what we get is a case specific advice. So there was an example which I've taken here, which was wherein a firm had AI software firm had used an AI-based clinical decision support software, which helped clinicians to find the best treatment for patients with skin care. Unfortunately, the algorithm that was taken was predominantly trained only on Caucasian patients. So that AI software was less likely to be giving any accurate information for any other subpopulation than Caucasian. So, for example, if I was, as a physician, wanted to understand what would be the recommendation for my African American patient, for example, so it would never be giving me that, because the algorithm which the AI software firm had put in was only taking Caucasian patients into account. So the fairnesses and biases is something that is also very important in the algorithm that we put in. But with all the concerns or the challenges, we definitely have the solutions as well. I think there are a lot of studies and there are a lot of experiences, which I'm sure later Vivek would help help the audience understand better, that how do they minimize these biases. So, for example, how does CellStrat minimizes these biases? So Vivek would be a good person later to talk about that. So there's definitely an increased data availability. There are attempts to better collect data from all the population. So there's a fair amount of representation from all the populations that we talk about, uh, and also specify for which population the algorithm is or is not appropriately used. And there is a term called black boxes in AI, which are also kind of important in that scene. So the safety and effectiveness of health AI application that are black boxes could, for example, be demonstrated similar to the handling of drugs by positive results of randomized controlled trials. So there are some of ways that we could minimize these biases. The other important challenge that I've listed out is definitely human resource and infrastructure challenge. So I think public health long has been underfunded. I think it goes without saying, as compared to the other areas of health. And there's a substantial investment in the workforce education, awareness, skill sets, which is very much essential for helping grow digital public health. We can talk about the country India. I think the government owns large swathes of data, I think both from the public health facilities and national programs. Unfortunately, that data lacks a lot of completeness or accuracy, or if you put that data into a sophisticated technology like AI, we are bound to get incorrect conclusions. And on aggregation, like I'm repeating myself, small errors like misspelled names, inaccurate counts at the facility levels can also accumulate into glaring misinterpretations. I think this also can detract from the representatives of the data set that we've taken, which was used for the training, and potentially it has a potential to amplify data biases in the models, and which results into a severe fallout. So I think solution for that would be that there needs to be investments, long-term investments to be done with kind of having digital centers of excellence. I think India is going to have now digital center of excellences, and AI is going to feature into that now, wherein we have a necessary balance of partners and um, a kind of a very clear agreement or an MOU signed, that how do we get a pre-agreed access to digital data sets there, which we can't expect from the AI firms to have, wherein they only get it from the partnership at an environment level. So I think coming back to the limitations of this AI-based patient care support tools, uh, I think the pictures that I've put in there are self-explanatory. I think there's uh, patient care or healthcare, I would say, is not mechanical at all. I think that the feeling that a physician is holding hand of a patient, or he's explaining to the other fellow junior doctors, or he is reviewing his own data from the first picture, and at the last, where a physician is trying to hear something. Well, he's not only trying to hear, uh, you know, uh, you know, about something that is going to help him make any kind of an interpretation, but there are a lot of other emotional variables which goes into helping this clinician make that decision. So the compassion and the empathy, and not only the application of clinical skills that these doctors or these pictures that I have put in there. So computers, unfortunately, they have not adequately captured many subconscious decision-making processes. These subconscious decision-making processes, there's a lot of research which is being done. They are based on now minute sensory inputs, past memories and experiences of these physicians, which I'm sure with the time and with the technology getting better, even they will be able to do that. But at present, I would say it's still not there. And machine learning on its own is we cannot expect them to replace the deeply and unique human capacity in disease diagnosis. What it can definitely do, which it did with baricitinib, I think, which it did with so many other examples that we discussed in the first session, the great opportunities with artificial intelligence, was yes.
Yeah, sorry
Sorry.
for. I have regarding this patient care support, the limitation of AI. But
Yeah.
by understanding that patient emotions, then even AI can give that voice-based support, right? It's not AI cannot do that activities. By understanding the emotion of the patient, even by using the speech recognitions, we can give that emotional support, understanding that patient emotion, and we give the voice support for that, right? Also, that can be done through AI, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely we discussed that in our first session, and I'm sure you were, if you were part of that, that all of that advancements have been made, but speech recognition is unfortunately not the only way of showing empathy and compassion. There's a complex layering as a human that is there. I think what I'm trying to probably highlight is that it has done a fairly good job, but with the concerns that the community has, that there is a unique human capacity when it comes to understanding emotions, and which are deep layered. So I think that will take a little bit more time, or I would say that is still not there. A human eventually is a human being. I mean that's how I'll take that as. But to your point, there are advancements, but definitely there's much more that can be done in that field. So. Uh, Companion diagnostics is something that was a very interesting. I think companion diagnostics, if most of us would know that they're widely used in the oncology space, wherein they help the hospitals, the physicians to assist in helping them to make a decision. They don't make a final choice for the physician, but they help them or they improve the effectiveness of what the physicians already know as an experience. So I think companion diagnostics, the way companion diagnostic is being perceived in the healthcare space, I think in a similar way, I believe that AI should also be perceived and the clinic as a clinical decision support tool with the techniques, and it can show you many choices, but eventually what you choose is still relied on your own experience. Is something that I would say. Apart from the innate challenges that the technology has, which is true for technology not only in healthcare, I would say general in every other sector, there are some emerging legal and ethical concerns as well. I think because it's data, and that too it's a confidential private data that we talk about. I think it's bound to be of uh, importance to discuss that what would be those primary ethical challenges like data privacy, informed consent to use, safety and transparency, algorithm fairness and biases with respect to ethics, and the legal challenges again would be what would be the legal standpoint of on AI with respect to safety and effectiveness, with respect to liability or medical liability. I'm sorry. And what would be it for data protection and privacy, cybersecurity, intellectual property law? I think all of that would be very, interested to discuss in this session, and also to understand that we all are in this together. There's not only the AI firm which is in between that has to follow this ethics. It's an entire ecosystem. There are a lot of challenges from an ecosystem perspective, which is not, helping the AI to be adopted that faster, whether it is as a regulator, whether it's as a policymaker, whether it's at a physician level. So we will discuss that as well. So a lot of stakeholders, from tech executives to engineers to academics to computer and data scientists to lawyers, psychologists, advocates, everyone needs to come together to create an ecosystem where the adoption of these kind of technologies is faster. I think there was one very interesting study uh, wherein they concluded that 91% of healthcare insiders see artificial intelligence boosting as an access to care, but there were around, I think, I don't know if you all can see, but there was a significant percentage which also felt that it could threaten the security and privacy of patient data, which I'm sure is very much acceptable, because as we would not educate them, they would not understand. So there's a lot to be done with respect to having their awareness levels increased to an understanding that what would the data privacy with respect to ethics and legally mean. So why is data so important, or privacy of data so important for AI? I think, like I said, it is important in every industry, to be very honest. I think the 4Gs and the 5Gs and the telecommunications sector, there are a lot of issues there as well with respect to their privacy and security. So I think, but that sector adopted themselves with an understanding that what are those missing gaps that my ecosystem has, and how do I work in those missing gaps, etc. So while it is important in every industry, I think typically it is reinforced vigorously when it comes to medical data. I think because there is a lot of confidential personal information which is available through that, and the reason why the public health and the private data sets are often inaccessible is because of that. So I think most of the countries, even developed countries, I would say, patient data is not typically allowed to leave the healthcare premises, and research institutions, whether it's a hospital, they're very much scared, I would say, of having these cloud platforms, and they always say that we are very much fine to use our own servers, and even if you annotate the health data, including the investigative reports of radiological scans or pathological reports, it's necessary for the data to be usable, for the machine to learn and draw patterns. So even if you annotate that and it's not reusable, it's not to be used in that format by the machine, then it's of no use. So I think these AI health apps, they raises these issues such as sharing patient data not only with the doctor but also with the family and the friends. And it is actually the doctor who's subject to the duties of confidentiality set out by the country laws, or of course the legal guardians of the family. Uh, so a lot of complexity in that particular process when it comes to that particular data privacy and privacy preserving processes, like if you anonymize that data or de-identify, they can also remove all the personally identified marks from the data and prepare it for sharing the training AI models. A lot of firms are doing that. But we also do understand that even if we do that, even if we anonymize the data, de-identify the data, it is still not absolute. It is still not the best way to have the data privacy, there. So I think both privacy preserving and these annotation processes are very cumbersome. They are investment heavy activities, which also can, ultimately have these development of these wonderful technologies expensive, create new barriers for the new enterprises. So I think uh, something that we all, from a session perspective, we should know. The second question comes from a data privacy point, is who owns the big data? If there are patients and the clinicians who do not really trust their AI partners or the AI firms, how would we successfully integrate them into clinical practice? It is bound to fail one day. And it's fundamentally very important to adequately inform these patients that what kind of a data we are processing, and have an open dialogue to promote trust, because it's very important in countries, in developed countries. It is definitely, as a part of the legal process, it's very important. But I think as a developing country also, now that we are there, we should also have an open dialogue wherein what kind of data and what we're going to do with it eventually is something that is very, very important. And the value that this health data, I mean, is this any AI firm is going to sell that data to some other firm and have billion of dollars, and some evidence to do suggest that public is little uncomfortable with companies or governments selling this kind of a patient data for profits. And I think the solution for that would be that we need to find ways for the patients to feel valued. Maybe they do not have ownership per se, but they are transparent enough to know what exactly is happening with their data that they have. And I think one of a good example that came to my mind was wherein NHS made a deal with Google DeepMind to provide patient data for the testing of the streams, wherein they had an exchange for the trust-free use for that for 5 years, uh, and they kind of reciprocated that with the patient, and that does not necessarily require ownership, but they were proactively seeking to use patient data, and they kind of showed that they're adding value to the health of the very same patients whose data was being used. So I felt it was a very good solution when it comes to having those issues of data privacy and who owns kind of that. The question should never be who owns the patient data, because patients themselves cannot own that data. But patients, if they're not owners, they should definitely be equal partners in terms of the uh, understanding what benefits they are getting out to be by using such platforms. I think the other most important concern that the community has is informed consent. I think informed consent is something which is widely used across the terms in healthcare and, of course, in other industries as well. But with respect to artificial intelligence, how will the use of artificial intelligence to assist with the care of patients interface with the principles of informed consent? So the pressing question of the need is that I would say it has actually not received enough ethical, it's not received, got enough attention in the debate of ethics, that how would we, what do we mean by informed consent in AI? So that is something that I always felt, was a question that I personally don't have that answer to, but it's very interesting to know what that informed consent would look like, uh, and how do we integrate that informed consent, uh, by off taking for AI into clinical practice. So I think there is definitely a high need to examine under what circumstances, if at all, principles of informed consent should be deployed in clinical AI space, and what extent these clinicians have a responsibility to educate the patients around the complexities of AI, including what kind of forms machine learning are used by the system, what are the kind of data inputs that this machine has taken, what are the possibility of the biases, what are the other shortcomings in the data that is being used. So, and of course, a pertinent question that what would be those circumstances wherein a clinician should and must notify the patient that AI is being used at all? I mean, is it really important that a clinician has to, let a patient know that AI is being used at all? I think these are the questions which are out there in the community right now, in with respect to healthcare, and it would be good for all of us to ponder our thoughts into that. With respect to informed consent, there is a interesting term, black box algorithms. Again, the black box algorithms are algorithms which results from the non-interpretable machine learning techniques that are very difficult for clinicians to understand fully. So, for example, uh, how would we would never be able to tell that how did a machine made this predictive or made any kind of a prediction based on exactly which factor it did. So there was an example by Corty's algorithm, which was a Danish firm, wherein Corty's algorithms are black box because even Corty's invented really did not know how the software reached its decisions to alert the emergency dispatchers that someone has a cardiac arrest. So it's very difficult for even the one who has invented those algorithms to say that how did the machine reach the final conclusion or the outcome based on exactly what parameter, for example, that cardiac arrest had taken place. So I think to what extent the clinician need to disclose to the uh, uh, patients and to the community, if it's a public health, to the community, that they themselves cannot fully interpret the diagnosis or treatment recommendations by the AI. The third important concern which I feel with respect to AI is user agreements with respect to informed consents. I think user agreements, we all must have heard about it. User agreements is a contract that an individual agrees to without a face-to-face dialogue, unlike the conventional traditional informed consent processes where a patient is included in a trial, he's being asked to sign a user agreement, and there is definitely a complete process that gets involved with them accepting the rules of that particular trial happening. But in this particular AI, we really, I mean, there's no face-to-face dialogue unlike the conventional processes. So how closely should user agreement resemble the informed consent documents? And the questions that we all must, as a community, learn, wanting to learn more about AI, we should reflect on the questions that what would be an ideally ethical right user agreement would look like? What kind of an agreement would be right, wherein we say yes, this is an exact ideal user agreement that an AI firm should be, or the any platform which is using technologies like artificial intelligence should use. I think recent trends are that there are so many AI health apps and chatbots which are being used, and they are ranging right from diet guidances to health assessments, which are helping to improve the medication adherence and analysis of data collected by wearable sensors. So the people, the consumers who are using that, so what kind of an information should be given to individuals who are using such apps and chatbots? And do we as a consumer really sufficiently understand that the future use of this AI health app or a chatbot or any kind of a data may be conditional on accepting certain change to the term of use? So for example, there always been these frequent update requests that I use so many apps, and And if I make those frequent updates in the software, it makes it even more difficult for individuals to follow as a consumer like myself, that what terms of services I am agreeing in first place. They're very tricky questions because honestly, when we talk about these data, this data can be used in any way. I mean, I'm using an AI health app for maybe for my weight loss or anything. I'm just throwing away an example, and the information that I'm giving out there can be misused maybe tomorrow by someone else, maybe in a form to my employer, to etc. There's a huge risk with respect to knowing exactly, what is happening with these apps and chatbots that are using these, the technologies like AI. So I think tackling these questions would be tricky, but as an AI community who's interested to learn more about AI, it's very difficult. It's very important to reflect on these questions and have a dialogue, an open dialogue between all the stakeholders. Uh, I think coming back to the point, I think these questions are tricky, but when it comes to it becomes even more difficult to answer when the information from patient-facing AI health apps or chatbots is fed back into clinical decision making. So if the same health app or chatbot uses the data which we as consumers are putting in, and we just put in because sometimes we try to give false information, etc., etc., and they use that platform to be making a decision, a clinical decision for say a particular disease. Again, it's a very difficult and a tricky area where we might have to put more attention to.
Hello, doctor. Yeah. Yeah, well, towards whether in education or everything is moving to the digitalized and everything is there stored as a database.
i'm
So here,
actually I'm actually not able to hear you properly. I'm so sorry.
now what I'm, are you able to hear me?
Yes, now it's much better. Could you please repeat
Yeah.
your question?
So what I'm trying to say is world is moving towards everything is digitalized, not only the medical field. So all your PAN card, Aadhaar card, your transaction, everything is digitalized. So not only the medical field, only that is if is only concerned about the medical field data, but everything is digitalized and everything is stored in the database and everything in the central server. So here,
Yes.
why is concerned about only medical field, worried about this data,
So,
data
so for
security?
yeah, so for example, if somebody does not want to put into their previous medical history. So if
Mhm.
someone has a previous medical history, they don't want to put that information because they feel that that would limit their chance, for example, to get an employment or many other things, right? They're not comfortable. But if they're
Yeah,
forced
even
to put,
if you go for any
yeah,
consultant, then your doctor will make everything they record and everything digitalized and everything stored in the database.
yes, yes. But it is unfortunately because the awareness levels are so low with the society, and it is a confidential data, a health data, or a health of a particular individual is the most confidential data that we can talk about in today's time. I think when we talk about the Aadhaar card and the other, PAN card examples that you give, see, that is as a regulation mandate from the government that we all have to do. But when you talk about all the personal health related, which is right there out in the open, and you really don't know what kind of an interpretation that will happen eventually with using that data set, it always scares the community. It always scares the healthcare community. I think what we are trying to discuss in this session is that what are those concerns? And see, concerns are always there, and we have to do is try to address those concerns.
Thank
I
you,
hope
doctor.
I'm audible. I hope I'm audible.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Yes,
answer.
yes, doctor, all good.
Sure, sure. So I think for that very reason, I feel transparency is very critical. Now, if we are asked to link our Aadhaar or PAN to everything, to our bank accounts, to everything, even if we are booking an Uber or an Ola, I think because that is transparent. Government is being transparent enough to ask us to do that, and At least we believe that they are transparent. But I feel with these AI-based apps, chatbots, sensors, contact tracing apps, see, they're not being transparent. So I'll just give you a quick example. It was a good question asked by, I'm sorry, I could not hear the name properly, by the gentleman before. I mean, for example, if in any of these AI-based platforms, I put in an information that I am, for example, COVID positive, and I just put it there, out there. And if I go to an airport, maybe say 7 months, 8 months later, 10 months later, 9 months later, and I reach there and I find out that my information about me being COVID positive before 8 months or 9 months, wherein I'm in a remission, etc., etc., I've completely recovered and all that was, and travel authorities are not letting me fly because they already know I've been COVID this thing, and they feel that I'm the vulnerable patient that could be carrying that infectious agent again. So all of that is just an example that I could think about. So these are the things that people are little wary about, that how are we using this data, my own personal health data, how is it going to be used against me eventually, I mean, in some way or the other. And these are the concerns. And when it comes to health, everybody gets scared, honestly. So I think uh, we always can do much about it, like from terms of awareness, making them understand that it is not only about health, but there are other data which is already out, like you said, your national numbers of, like we have in India, Aadhars or PAN, so we can get all the information right from there. But the concerns are there with the medical community. I think that is where I feel transparency is very much critical. How do you be transparent to get buy-in from stakeholders? So I think it transparency for me, it always it stands very high when it comes to the values. I think as a physician myself, I respect transparent dialogues. I respect transparent conversations, wherein I know what am I getting into. I think the biggest challenge I feel these technology firms and etc. are facing is that they really are not being that transparent. And we have seen examples. It was a big, huge case which had happened with IBM Watson. I think for oncology, it was in the public glare for so long. I think just because of the transparency issues, and if one is transparent enough with their partners, I think these issues would really not come in the first place. So we should. I always think that we should learn our lessons from IBM Watson for oncology, which again they use the AI algorithms to assess the information from patients' medical records, which help physicians explore the cancer treatment option for their patients. What IBM did, it kept Watson unsafe and the incorrect treatment recommendations. They did not let that out for over a year. And the problem seemed to be that in training of Watson for oncology, they never used the real patient data. And the software was fed or trained, if I would use that word in technology, I think it was trained with the few synthetic cancer cases, meaning they were only devised by the doctors, the physicians. They were never the real cases, real patient data cases. I think they were in partnership with MSK, which is one of the top centers, Memorial Sloan Kettering Center, Cancer Center. I think, uh, and no other doctor, no other center in the state knew about that they were doing that, and that is what they said, that MSK finally concluded that the error never occurred as a part of the system testing, and thus no incorrect treatment recommendation has been given to a real patient. But who would believe in it? See, MSK doctors could believe because they were in partnership with IBM Watson, but other hospitals, other treatment centers, they would never believe that. So this is a huge public, it was a huge public glare. I think uh, we need to be transparent as AI stakeholders. I think in an ecosystem, we need to be transparent to each other. And if one could streamline the model into a simpler mathematical relationship linking symptoms and diagnosis, then this process might still have sophisticated transformations beyond the skills of clinicians and especially patients to understand. And I think it's a very important point to reflect upon. I think, again, from a liability perspective, it's a huge topic. I think, uh, as my experience of being a physician and then working in a private healthcare industry over 10 years, I think my interaction with decision makers, top decision makers, key opinion leaders in a lot of fields, I think liability, a medical liability or a medical malpractice liability is always a concern. India does not have that stringent laws. still doctors are concerned here. So I think AI also presents those concerns. I mean, they are sophisticated technologies eventually, and a doctor would always think that, I mean, am I liable to give a recommendation out of an AI and make it as my own recommendation? Then I'm liable, I mean, as a medical malpractice. So I think what we must do as an AI partners would be, we create an optimal liability design that figures out responsibility. That's very clear that, who is responsible for what. And I think that would be also something that is being done right now. I think the example is in, UK healthcare. I think wonderfully they are accepted, and they are doing an artificial intelligence where they're analyzing different CT scans for different brain stems. I think that is where exactly they have designed an optimal liability design, that it is not the clinician eventually who, if there would be a misinterpretation, or if there would be any any kind of a diagnostic error, that a physician or a clinician is going to be liable, but it is a collective model that is going to be put into place to have an optimal liability design. I think this was quite an interesting technology that was there, which what it did was that we always, I mean, I would just probably say that, and maybe for the sake of the audience, that when we go to these centers or radiology centers, there's always a junior radiologist and a senior radiologist, and they kind of junior radiologist screens, or you can say reviews the CT scans, etc., and then passes it on to the specialist neuroradiologist or a senior radiologist. And if he has missed out a certain interpretation of a certain gap or a flaw, he kind of picks it out, the senior one. But what they did was, they felt that it is such a waste of time, to put in so much of a resourcing there. What they did was, the AI was replacing in a way the junior radiologists, and they were trying, the data sets that were fed into that was that they could pick out even the sophisticated uh, understanding of these CT brain stems, and that way the process was smooth, it was agile, and finally the decision was made by the specialist neuroradiologist. But the speed and the agility that it could have was quite faster. So that was one wonderful example I felt, and you could see the red arrow. It is definitely a stroke. I mean, we call good. I mean, I don't know how much clear it is. So that was an example that nice, the NHS in UK has adopted. I think it's one of the wonderful examples. It would be called as an optimal liability design that we should think about. So, and then again, there are other options like product liability against the AI makers as a solution. Would that really hold? I think I thought about it, and I think, in my opinion, I mean, it's a good approach. I mean, eventually, I realized that this AI firms, or the technology firms that we have, they all need to come together. Like how we have the bodies when it comes to pharmaceutical industry in India, we have OPPIs, we have global pharmaceutical bodies, which kind of wherein we all are working together to help make the decisions faster at an environment or at a government level. It would be very important for all these top AI firms and the budding AI engineers, developers to have and to come together and create such forums wherein they educate the different stakeholders and they fast track the process. One example I feel, do I really think that product liability against the AI makers as a solution? And yes, it can be done, I think, but the only reason you all can educate me, I don't know of any association of the AI engineers or the AI firms together, because if there is one such association, then yes, product liability would make sense. Whereas in healthcare or in pharma, there is definitely something called as vaccine compensation programs, the national vaccine injury compensation, where all the vaccine manufacturers, they pay into that fund, and the system then eventually collectivize the risk by paying out to those who are unfortunately harmed by a vaccine somewhere. So AI manufacturers also could do the same, which would eventually compensate patients, spread the risk across the industry, and may also give the individual firms of these AI less incentives to ensure the product safety. Well, I think that is something that is doable, but for that, one needs to know if there are such bodies which are definitely there or not. So I think there is currently no fully harmonized European regulatory framework for liability on AI and robotics. And even I would say FDA does not have any direct framework for the liability on AI and robotics. Such, I mean, even in, I would say, medical robotics hasn't in place. But very recently, Europe has taken several steps to address those issues, which is kind of a good sign for us to learn from as a country, India. And the intellectual property law, I think, always it's a hot debate that whether the commercial protection of AI and the data-driven healthcare should be with discrete, or whether it should be like an open science and innovation. I think for the sake of research, for the sake of moving ahead, I would definitely go with data sharing, which is necessary in order to achieve the successful deployment of artificial intelligence at a large scale. And uh, I think in my previous session also I spoke about that, how it would be desirable to have the legal frameworks around it, which would be desirable that promote and incentivize these data through example sharing the data, public-private partnerships, and ensuring that there's an adequate protection of data privacy. And there needs to be a competition and an antitrust law which needs to become more future oriented to better understand and predict the dynamics and develop the better developments of big data and AI in the health sector. So I think from a regulation perspective or a regulatory framework perspective, apologies if my slide is looking a little crazy. I think it has to do with not the slide, but I think uh, with with the platform that I'm presenting it from. So yeah, so I think the basic problem that the AI faces is in improving the future of healthcare would be that AI is more advanced than the standards. What we mean by that is that, I mean, today, if we talk about, for example, a country like India, or I would say even a developed country, what is a traditional regulatory role? I mean, a person who's out there who can regulate any medical device or any pharmaceutical drug or any food and beverages that we are having, they have a very conventional traditional role. I mean, they're not that advanced as this whole AI technology is, which is through this diagram, they identify the risk, they identify that are there enough measures to mitigate that risk? Are there enough standards which are created, and are they, do they have enough certification there? And are they being incentivized, or there are penalties, etc.? And finally, they conclude that whether the product is safe or unsafe. That's how a traditional regulatory process works. A DCGI in India works like that. FDA runs like that. MHRA runs like that. So this particular AI and machine learning based healthcare solution, the technology is, I would say, far more advanced than the standards. I mean, they would not understand what it exactly does. I mean, the most unfortunate thing is that in the absence of a very clear approval and market access pathway, innovators have a higher price to pay to enter the healthcare innovation market. We have CellStrat, as we have great innovators there. I mean, now they would have to pay a price to enter the healthcare innovation markets because of the very reason that the environment or the regulation would not understand what the platform is all about and how this technology is going to help, how you improve the future in the healthcare using AI. So I think role of regulation needs to be definitely improved, and it needs to be start now incentivizing the uptake of AI for addressing the public health woes. Luckily, I think the blessing in disguise is COVID, wherein lot of regulatory frameworks have been changed now with respect to AI, wherein, okay, sorry, so
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
why,
So you have mentioned that India is like a developing countries, but we can promote any product through media. So media is a powerful tool to reach out to the any people. So if we promote through media, so all the healthcare, all AI related product through media or through advertisement, it can reach even uh, demonetization also reached very fast level.
sure. Yes, so but I'm sorry, but then this is a medical. If you're using an AI medical care product, how would that be? We cannot go direct to the consumers.
No, no, it's not consumer. We can the media is a powerful tool. So using the media, media it would be in cinema or any other media related. we can promote that all AI related product.
Yeah. I mean, if I get you right, you're talking about how do we improve the awareness. Yes, that is definitely through media that these kind of technologies are out there, which I said because of COVID, I think, which is already happening. I mean, there are a lot of these countries who have now accepted amendments to their guidelines with respect to the AI, which we will see in the future slides, which is, I think, very, very interesting. I mean, definitely media did play a role, but it unfortunately it played a role when already there was a pandemic, which was COVID, which happened. That AI or such technologies could really help address these massive public health challenges. I would say, I think from regulatory perspective, there are still adequate level of regulatory oversight which is needed to ensure the safety and effectiveness of AI. And how can AI makers bring their products to their respective markets? I think whether AI products needs to undergo review is whether such products are medical devices or not. First question would be, I think, would be definitely to ask ourselves whether really AI products need to undergo review. I mean, for that, we need to really understand our regulatory frameworks of the respective countries that we're talking about. The picture that is out there is from the Europe. I think that is where there were certain legal developments which happened in the EU. I felt it was very important to put in here. There were two new EU regulations which entered into the force somewhere around in 2017 under the medical device regulation, which was MDRI, and the regulations of the in vitro medical devices, and they felt that the software which was not falling under the medical device definition of the MDD may soon be classified as MDDR. So that was a very interesting development, and would AI based platforms or products fall under that is a question. I think from an FDA, it also regulates medical devices in the USA. I think uh, AI products, would it really be featured under the medical devices? I think yes. Some say yes, some still have no opinion, but again, FDA also have no clear-cut guidelines for where exactly the AI products would fit in. I think overall, if we see from a system lens for an AI regulation, I have taken certain examples of the major governing bodies like US FDA and also included India in that respect. I think all these governing bodies for regulating the AI, the parameters like ethical, legal, and societal implications, society, safety and security, what would be the standards and the benchmarks, data sets and environments, and the capable AI workforces. So all of that are always set in the mindsets of this at a system level with these decision makers. So uh, there is definitely going to be the center of excel research which is going to be there for general AI, sensory AI, cognitive AI, physical AI, and this is from India. I think there are international centers for transformational AIs which are going to be there, and US Food and Drug Administration, I think they very recently, I think Barack Obama, after that Donald Trump also had signed an amendment which was from the International Medical Device Regulation Forum, which was IMDRF, which provides us a kind of a, I would say, lens of looking at how do we regulate the artificial intelligence and machine learning models in healthcare and categorizing them as software medical device or software as a medical device. It's a recent development which is very important for all of us as an AI stakeholders to know. I think from US FDA proposal also involved treating regulation for AI as a series of iteration checkpoints rather than like a one time certification model. And given that the potential threat which is there considered against the intended use of AI, there definitely is, these bodies like FDA and as EU, they are asking for the clinical evidence which is to be submitted both before and after you deploy any AI product or a platform in the country. I think India's national strategy, I think our Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also, set up a precedent, I would say, in that sense for AI capacity development program, which is through the institution of centers of research excellence for which is clearly out there in the picture, wherein it's going to focus on the fundamental research as well as an international centers on the transformation. So these were quite a quick snapshot of what all is happening from a system perspective for regulating the AI. And I think another important concern would be data protection laws and what is the status there when we understand AI with respect to data protection law. I think both are very important, HIPAA and GDPR. HIPAA is nothing but an Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act privacy rule, which is federal law which protects the health data privacy in US. I think significant gaps again in today's context, and do we really have a clear-cut definition of using AI with respect to HIPAA guidelines? I would say unfortunately no, because currently HIPAA also does not apply to non-health information that support inferences. Like you are buying a pregnancy test on Amazon, for example. So would that be covered under HIPAA, which is the data? Well, the question is, it limits its scope with the definition that it has given to non-health information. It generally includes the insurance company, insurance services, insurance organizations, healthcare clearinghouses, and healthcare providers, but not much beyond that. And very interestingly, the health information which is collected by technology giants like Amazon, Google, IBMs of the world, they are, I mean, investing so heavily in the field of AI in healthcare, but how they're operating, they're all governing outside of HIPAA. I mean, there's because there are no clear-cut guidelines there. And if you go to GDPR, which is in EU, it definitely is better than HIPAA, I would say, with respect to capturing the data protection law with AI in a more systematic fashion, which is they have provisions that are relevant to AI-infused medicines. So, where, for example, there where the personal data is collected, the controller must provide data subject with information about the existence of automated decision making, including profiling, etc., etc. Wherein also they ask to provide a meaningful information about the logic involved and as well as the significance and the consequences of processing such data. So I think GDPR has definitely a one step ahead than HIPAA in that sense, and we all can take a cue from that with respect to countries like India and the other developing nations. Cybersecurity, I think another big threat. I think it's a need within the IoT world. Uh, and the case that comes to mind is WannaCry ransom attack, which is a global cyber attack. They used a sophisticated hacking tools. It crippled the entire NHS in UK. It hit the courier delivery service, which is FedEx, infected more than 300,000 computers in 150 countries. And events like those not only resulted in the reactions at a national level in UK, but it prompted a new cyber security act. And I think latest developments that we have in US, Europe, and I am quite hopeful that it will promote the safety of AI-driven products and processes in the healthcare sector, which is very important, I would say, in AI, the cyber attacks, because it will quickly come into the media glare, and unfortunately, that company would have to face the repercussions of that. So it's important to understand and operate within the cybersecurity laws of your country that you are marketing your products, AI products in. What is the current status of AI in the public health in developed countries? I think United Kingdom. I think I gave an example that they were almost the first top ones. The NHS, the National Health Service, they adopted an AI chatbot-based triage system. Triage is nothing but a triangulation of the data points in 2019, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to know that it is doing very well. I think they are all very happy with that. That's what I know of. I think unfortunately, these are the solutions that would also replace a lot of human resources, etc. You don't really need people to be there to help you screen, to help you understand. That is all replaced by AI now. But if we have to really do that for countries wherein the resources are limited, in countries, it's very difficult, because it's of course investment heavy solutions that we are talking about, and these are few solutions which can actually reach up to the primary care setups, wherein you don't really need the manpower and the resources, and the AI chatbots, like AI chatbot trial system, what is in NHS, can actually do that. But unfortunately, due to the high cost of development and operationalization, that it kind of deters the affording pricing for scale. But it can be done, I think. We have an example in front of us with the AI chatbot trial system. The other example that definitely comes to mind is what UK has adopted, the artificial intelligence for analyzing the CT brain scans. And I'm talking just about the public health, not as a product in the general space, only as a public health examples. I think it definitely was of benefit when images were not first reviewed by specialist neuroradiologists, because most of the time these senior radiologists, they're busy, they're not available. It leads a lot of waste of effort, etc., etc. Now, because of artificial intelligence being there, and which was actually studied, I think it was not there that public health officials in UK decided that today we are going to use AI, artificial intelligence, for analyzing CT brain. No, I think because when it comes to public health, you need to submit a lot of evidence. So there were definitely a lot of evidence which was studied from 11 studies, which is huge, I would say. I think 7 variation studies, which included more than 31,000 CT brain scans, and it showed the technology to be very effective at detecting the intracranial hemorrhages as a neuroradiologist. However, the study conditions never reflected into the clinical practices. There were 4 real-world observational studies also submitted, including somewhere around 59,655 CT brain scans, which suggested that this technology may very well perform into clinical practice. And there were 3 studies. Unfortunately, they were reported as abstracts, and they were limited in their methodological details. Out of those 11 studies, I would say there was so much of 31,000 CT brain scans, which was out there and as an evidence, 59,655 as the real world observational studies, which demonstrated the effectiveness of artificial intelligence for public health. And they accepted that. And the cost of AI software for CT brain scans was between £8,000 to £80,000 per license fee every year, and the cost of the technology then depended on the size of the NHS trust and number of an analysis done. And pay-per-use was also available for one of the listed technologies, and it costed £45. I think the resource impact would be greater than the standard care. However, it always can be offset by a faster diagnosis of time-sensitive cases, which is reducing complications related to delayed treatment. I think wonderful example how it can help in public health in countries. The other example that comes to my mind is again from UK, which is called as medtech device. Again, a public health example of AI, and not the general products of AI in healthcare space. There will be many, but this is a public health example. I think Meta tool, wonderful tool, I would say. I think medtech devices, which was designed specifically for the developers of medical devices, diagnosis, and the digital health technologies. It offered a hybrid service that combined a Meta tool, consultation with their traditional scientific advice services. So it kind of it addressed, or it kind of offered a high level gap analysis of the evidence base, and also they got an advice on the key issues around the prospective evidence generation plans and approaches to the economic model. You all can definitely check that tool out. I think it is also one of the very good public health tools with respect to AI, which is out there. And I think very interestingly, National Artificial Intelligence Research and Development Strategic Plan in 2019 had given an update, and there are 8 strategic priorities which are there for federally funded AI research, which I think all of us as AI stakeholders or as partners in AI should definitely know. What does that strategic plan look like as per from the National Artificial Intelligence update? Of course, it talked about addressing the ethical, legal, and societal implication, ensure that the safety and security of AI systems is there, share the public data sets and environments, evaluate AI technology using standards benchmark, understand the national AI R&D workforce, and also have a vision to expand the public-private partnerships with respect to that. I think I know in the interest of time, I'm quickly rushing through the slides, but I think I would probably leave you all with a thought, with a summary that some of the very powerful quotes, I would say, which I feel is something that we all should reflect upon as AI partners in some way or the other. I think one of that was from an IBM president, which was that there's a land rush around AI right now. The competitive advantage is going to come from being cognitive and just not being mechanical, just because AI is there and we are going to be there. I think AI, without a doubt, I think there's no doubt it's going to bloom in another, I would say, another 2 to 3 years. I think the report says so. Exactly, it's going to be $1 trillion industry. I think technology is leading to positive healthcare outcome, but issues at an ecosystem level, at an environment level, they need to be fixed for the AI to, kind of have a widespread adoption. So successful implementation strategies will definitely be required, which will carefully accelerate with a coordinated policies from all the stakeholders at the government, regulators, private companies, non-governmental organization, and patient groups. And I think biggest challenge for AI in public health would be that there are known and unknown risks for making AI the norm for public health service delivery. I think that also threaten to upend the inequitable access that are very much synonymous with public health, something that we all do understand. And I think I would probably end the session by saying that there is no question that the great opportunity that AI presents. I think it has tremendous potential for improving our healthcare system. As a physician myself and as an expert in healthcare, working in a private industry as well, I completely vouch for the fact that it has tremendous potential for improving our healthcare system. And I think
Hello, Dr. Shruti. Uh,
the future healthcare system, and it is indeed future, but we can only unlock its potential by already starting now, which from now legal by nearly 8 that all for your attentive listening. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
okay, excellent session, Dr. Shruti. A wealth of information, I have to say, and we really appreciate all of these expertise. So, audience, any questions? So, I think Pushpraj asked a couple of good questions. Others have any questions? So, this is a whole, a plethora of interesting AI, nuances when it comes to AI for healthcare. So, while it shows a list of issues one has to tackle, it also showcases a vast opportunity, a green field to solve for these and do it in a very socially and ethical way. So I think it is a minefield, or you can even call it a gold mine as of opportunity. And but yes, one has to mind all these points to make it work correctly and win the trust of the healthcare community and the patient community. So any other questions, audience? This was a wealth of information by Dr. Shruti, and you can see what kind of massive things we need to think about when developing these AI systems. So it definitely needs a huge collaborative effort. Neither the healthcare community alone can do it, nor the AI or tech companies. So it needs an ecosystem play, and that's what we are trying to create with CellStrat AI platform and bring together various stakeholders to have these conversations and solve for the solutions correctly. So we have to balance the agility of technical innovation along with the healthcare nuances, as has been listed today by Dr. Shruti. Any other questions, audience? Excellent session, Dr. Shruti. It's a great pleasure to
Thank you very
listen into you.
thank you, appreciate it.
So, all right. So, thank you, Doctor. Thanks once again. Thank you, audience, for joining. And we'll look forward to many more sessions like this by our advisor here, Dr. Shruti. And we'll continue to have these conversations going forward. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.